Next, in our 1 hour heating and air conditioning weather center, we'll have a heavy thunderstorm in the forecast for today. For the afternoon, storms could bring some damaging winds, high 75. Partly cloudy and 49 overnight. Currently, we have 56 degrees at O'Hare. And your next news update is at 7 with breaking news as it happens. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. California Governor Gavin Newsom is getting along well with Trump, and he's taking heat from the left for saying what he knows to be true, that the administration has been responsive to California's needs. So much so, their fatality rate is now less than 1 in 100,000, which tracks to sparsely populated states like Nebraska, Alaska, Wyoming. They're not quite as good as Wyoming, but I mean right there, one of the 36 states with one or fewer than one death per 100,000 at this juncture. But that doesn't mean that Gavin Newsom isn't still a champagne socialist and a cultural Marxist. He is, and he reminded his constituents of that during a recent online event where he took questions such as this one about the opportunity this pandemic provides to push a more progressive agenda coming out of it.
So something was fundamentally flawed in that global context, manifested quite acutely here in the state of California, the richest and the poorest state with a number of the most impoverished metros in the country. And we've long been struggling to address those issues. So I see this quite substantively through that lens, that equity lens, looking at those folks that never fully recovered. And you look at medium wages for folks coming out of 08, 09 and the Great Recession that haven't fully recovered, even today that are struggling. And so what is going to happen to those folks in this current crisis? And what's the opportunity, to your question, for reimagining a more progressive era as it relates to capitalism? And I'm a capitalist. I'm a small business owner. I'm a job creator. Well, my customers are the job creators. I'm a beneficiary of their support. And that helps build that demand that allows me to hire more people. And so as a former business owner, now governor, I have had that experience and I have that appreciation of the importance of consumer confidence, consumer spending, and a vibrant middle class. And so, yes, forgive me for being long-winded, but absolutely we see this as an opportunity to reshape the way we do business and how we govern. And that shouldn't put shivers up the spines of, one party or the other. I think it's an opportunity anew for both parties to come together and meet this moment and really start to think more systemically, not situationally, not just about getting out of this moment, but more sustainably and systemically to consider where we can go together this historic moment if we meet it at a national level and a state and subnational level.
There's a lot of refrigerator magnet bromides there, but equity is a key word. And his little riff on capitalism. I'm a capitalist, but beware, and I don't care if it's Marco Rubio or Gavin Newsom, beware the politician who says I'm a capitalist, but I want to reshape capitalism. I want to bend capitalism to my will, which means I want to bend the interactions between a free people to my will. So don't think that we're going to emerge out of this with some sort of consolidated vision of what a free society should look like, how it should operate. And that's fine because you don't just unify for unity's sake. You unify around a common vision, common purpose. And because Gavin Newsom and Trump are getting along, and that's great, they should be. They should be focused on the task at hand in California for Newsom and the country for Trump. But don't forget who politicians like Gavin Newsom, who have their own presidential ambitions, really are. And on that word, equity, that's not limited to discussions at the gubernatorial level. That's happening in discussions in your kids' schools. And our friend Beth Feeley, who is a mom of 3 kids in school, wrote about that, a piece for The Federalist. The schoolwork my kids are bringing home exposes public schools' radical leftist politics. She is on the North Shore of Chicago. She's a freelance writer, editor for various nonprofits, including the Woodson Center, serving as launch director for its 1776 project. Beth, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So, I mean, you knew about what was going on with the homework your kids were getting, or you knew what was going on in the schools your kids attend because of the homework they're getting because you're paying attention. But it seems that now that you're a homeschooling parent, like so many by circumstance, you're getting even a more up close and personal look.
Yes, the assignments that I kind of prompted me to write the article, they did happen a couple weeks ago. And yes, this has been ongoing, quite frankly, for decades in the school system. But it seems to have ramped up in the last several years, at least to my notice. And, mostly as the kids enter junior high and high school, that's where I'm noticing more and more of these assignments that have an increasing focus on equity, an increasing focus on just really what amounts to left-wing politics on various issues. And so, it's been on my radar for a while. And it did seem that now that we all are educating our kids at home, that this is a really great chance for parents to really, take a really good look at the curriculum that their kids are learning and talk to their kids about it and just see if this is in their schools. I think this takes place, in certain communities more than others, but it's certainly in mine. And so I just felt the need to address it.
I mean, it's crazy. I was reading your article, which I love, by the way, about Thabies. What was in that in reference to the Thabies?
Yeah, so Thabies is apparently a thing, and it was presented in the world history class that my child takes, and it is about parents raising their babies to be, I guess, genderless until they decide what gender they are. And I thought, well, and it was actually presented in the context of a way to parent, and I thought, why are they teaching parenting at age 14 in high schools? And then B, why are they teaching about this? I mean, it just seemed like such a kind of a fringe thing. And I just didn't understand what it had to do with the curriculum. And it was, they presented an article. It had definitions of, what, gender is. And it seemed really slanted. And then what was really upsetting is at the end of the article, they basically added leading questions like, how does this justify gender as a social construct? So it wasn't even forcing kids to think about it. It was just asking them to regurgitate.
Right.
And that to me is really not educational. That's when you're trying to teach a
brainwashing.
worldview, not teach kids how to think. Exactly.
So you're talking about Thabies in world history, or they are, and then in physics, you're breaking
great.
down the work of Lil Nas X and what charts his song "Old Town Road" belongs on.
Yes, in physics class. So that was actually the next day. So
What?
I know, still trying to link that one. That one was interesting. It was preceded by this kind of intro to critical race theory. And then they had the kids read this article about basically saying that it was racist of Billboard to take Lil Nas X's song down. And anyway, I thought, what is going on here? And it got me to thinking that, I have seen this push for what is called equity. I've seen memos come out from our school. I actually read them. And, it occurred to me that this is kind of how this translates into the classroom. There was actually, and I think it's linked to in the article, that, they actually asked the teachers, like the administrators asked the teachers, how are you going to put equity in your classroom? And it struck me that this could be one of the ways they're doing it. So, it's not just this fuzzy idea. It actually has classroom consequences, and obviously thus, on how your kids are being educated. So, yeah, that one was a doozy. The people I had shared that with, it was pretty universal head scratching on that.
Well, and so the theme here is, and this is, a school district where you pay some of the highest property taxes in the state, which means the highest property taxes in the nation, and you have the highest spend per pupil right up there in the state. and everything is forced through the prism of race and gender, it seems to me, in terms of curriculum.
Well, they're certainly trying. And obviously, I think that there are some, some classes that kind of fit that more easily than others. I think English and history usually is where you see a greater opportunity to kind of mold the curriculum around these ideas. Math and then it used to be physics were a little bit more immune. But no, you're seeing more and more of this language. Sometimes it's overtly through class assignments, and then sometimes it's just how they talk about certain subjects. I mean, for example, in AP U.S. history, Columbus was presented as just a white male. There's just a lot of language. So sometimes it's direct, sometimes it's a little more subtle, but it does. It's kind of this undercurrent. And it is, something that the administration, they're being obvious about it. They actually promised us that they would embed this into the curriculum, and they're doing so. And so I question the educational value of it. This is purportedly, equity is a word that is used to, close disparities in performance across racial groups. It's used for some things, which I would love to see. I just don't think I see any of the results. And, so then why are you doing it? And I think there's actually a big downside. I think it can be very divisive. This is a lot of language that you find in Marxism, in terms of you've got the oppressed and the oppressors. And I just think that it is, it could be destructive. I don't think it's meant that way, but I do think it can have that effect. And again,
it's not meant that way.
Is this in our schools?
It's not meant that way.
So Beth, are you assigning? Are you making up your?
Charitable.
Are you
sorry,
assigning your kids different assignments?
Well,
or suggested reading list from Dan Proft, anything like that?
They actually, the school, this is not in every class. I do keep an eye on the assignments. They read Romeo and Juliet. They do keep some of the classics in the curriculum, and I think that's great. When the kids get an assignment like this, they do know to come to me to talk about it, and so that's good. And I'll just we'll explain it, explain kind of why it's a poor choice in my opinion for an assignment, and so try to use it as a learning experience. And as far as just how this e-learning is going, the schools have actually been putting together a lot of plans. It's going pretty well. I think this is an adjustment for everybody. And so far I have not had to supplement, but I will tell you they're getting it done, the work done a lot more quickly than they would in a classroom. I don't know if anyone else is out there finding that, but I heard that about homeschooling, and I think it's true.
Well, and everybody's adjusting, including the CEO of Zoom Video that so many of these schools were using. So it's less easy to hack. I know.
Easy to hack.
But here's the thing: this could be fun too with Zoom Video and doing classes that way with students in a particular class, all on video. Boy, have mom or dad sit down right next to the kid or in place of the kid and make sure teacher sees mom or dad listening to what he or she has to say when it comes to critical race theory and insinuating itself into physics and so on and so forth. That would be fun to have some adults in this conversation if the kids are afraid to push back.
That is not a bad strategy. I think this is a great opportunity for parents to do that. And yes, there was, I'm not sure if this was covered, but there was a hacking incident at New Trier, and I
read about it.
A lot of incidents. It wasn't just New Trier for him to say.
New York too. My kids every day are like, look, they're hacking in on this, and this is so funny, and this is going to happen when we do CPS next Monday when we start. And I'm like, I don't know about that.
Well, it's obviously ubiquitous, or the CEO of the company wouldn't be saying, I really messed up on security, and they're adjusting their security and trying to make it less hackable. So it's obviously a systemic problem. But so is a systemic problem. Parents not paying attention to what's going on, even in the Tony school districts up on the North Shore. So this is a clarion call, I would say.
I think so. I think that a lot of parents, you can't always know what is going on in a classroom. You're not there. So as you said, now you can be. And then also, just on an ongoing basis, once we get back to normal, I do think parents really, and it takes time to do this, but they need to pay attention. You need to show up at school board meetings. You need to stay on top of the memos that they generate. And because these board, they make important choices that really do impact your children. And unless you show up, unless you have a voice, some of these bad practices will continue. I would absolutely recommend that parents, if you do come across these assignments, contact the teacher. They will, you can find out the context, you can find out why they did it, and you can run it up the food chain if needed. But nothing changes unless you do speak up. So I strongly encourage that, and I know some parents are reluctant to do that because they're afraid of blowback. I have not found that. I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and I really do find that you actually, first of all, not all teachers are on board with this, A. But then B, you can affect change. It may be incremental. It may not happen nearly as quickly as you'd like it to. But I can assure you it won't happen if it goes unchecked.
Well, if they're signing Shakespeare, there's a toehold. There's a glimmer of hope. She is Beth Feeley, freelance writer, editor for various nonprofits, including the Woodson Center, serving as launch director for its 1776 effort. Check out her piece, which I tweeted out at thefederalist.com. The schoolwork my kids are bringing home exposes public schools as radical left politics. Beth, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
The Lou Dobbs Financial Report is brought to you by Signature Bank, helping local businesses succeed. Visit signaturebank.bank for your commercial banking needs.
I'm Lou Dobbs. The Fed to boost small business lending. Wisconsin's governor suspends in-person voting in today's primary, and airlines retreating from New York City. Those stories next.
The coronavirus is wreaking havoc here in the United States and across the globe. The stock market is plummeting. Sports leagues are suspending their seasons. Schools are sending students home, and the entire U.S. economy has been destabilized. Many experts say this is just the beginning. This is a devastating risk if you're heavy in stocks with no safeguard. Wise investors note